Järgmisena tema ekstsellents Monsignor Z Stankevics, Riia peapiiskop. And the next speaker, His Excellency Monsignor Z Stankevics, the Archbishop of Riga.
Excellencies, dear priests, sisters, and brothers and sisters in Christ, I would like to talk to you about theme Terra Mariana in the contemporary world, changes and challenges. Introduction. During this year, Latvia was the presiding member state of the European Union, and Christians of Latvia appreciate not only our political but also spiritual links with Europe. 800 years ago, in 1215, Pope Innocent III dedicated our lands to the protection of the Holy Virgin Mary. And for the first time in written sources, it was mentioned under the name Terra Mariana, which means the land of Mary. I don't know another land with such title. For this reason, we are a special land, and I would like to tell you about the values and challenges in Terra Mariana. Today, we can't separate ourselves from our roots, from the history of Europe. The values which we have today were formed over a long period of 800 years. Now, we again need Our Lady's special help and intercession for our spiritual and material prosperity. Short history. Although we are the land of Mary, our history has been quite complicated and painful, and we were not always faithful to our gift of providence. We received Christian faith in Latvia through German missionaries. Our first bishop was an Augustinian monk from Segeberg in Holstein, and he was consecrated in 1186. The third bishop, Albert, and I am his successor, but his Antonate, his Baron is here. He is in direct line from Bishop Albert. In 1201, he founded the Knights of the Sword. In such a way, he started the process of formation of Livonia, where the governing class for almost 700 years were German barons. Just till the middle of 16th century, Livonia existed as an independent country. Later, this territory, in different periods, was submitted to the different regional powers: Poland, Sweden, Russia, Germany, and Soviet Union. For this reason, one of the characteristics of Latvians, and I suppose also Estonians, is tenacity, which is necessary for survival in such conditions, and it takes time to conquer their hearts. Livonia was the first country where the Reformation ideas spread quite rapidly. The last Grand Master of Livonian Knights didn't want to be conquered by Russian Tsar Ivan the Terrible, and for this reason he preferred to become a vassal of Polish king. Southeastern part, Latgale, was under influence of Poland for centuries. It was the reason why the Catholic faiths survived in Latvia as one of the three main denominations, together with the Orthodox and Lutherans. In Estonia, which was longer totally submitted to Sweden, it's quite different, you know better. Today, there are only few thousand Catholics in Estonia, and your country is regarded as the most secularized country in the world, while in Latvia, approximately 3/4 of population in 2011 are baptized in one of the Christian denominations. But according with a survey in 2014, only 44% are believers and considered as belonging to one of the Christian communities. It means that we have quite big difference in statistics between formal act of baptism and real adherence to the faith. Challenges. Communist regime, which lasted for 50 years, strongly characterized by theoretical materialism, left strong consequences in mentality of our people. These consequences we can compare with virus AIDS. It has weakened spiritual immunity of our society against different illnesses which came from the West after falling of the Berlin Wall. During communism, private property didn't exist. All was regarded as ours, in parentheses, and somebody other was responsible for decisions. For this reason, the entrepreneurial spirit, initiative, and the sense of responsibility were strongly oppressed and weakened. Theoretical materialism created a false vision of reality, that material dimension of life and my corporal needs are the most important. For this reason, when we have got political freedom and the period of wild capitalism started, we were quite unprotected against uncontrolled desire to use all means. First of all, political power for getting personal benefits. Next danger was mentality of uncontrolled consumption as an ideal of life and a way to arrive in the promised land of happiness. Then a false concept of freedom developed without any connection with responsibility and truths. Postmodernist view of the world based on the theory that objective truths doesn't exist, but everybody has his own truths, strongly resonated with practical Freudism concept that main energy in human being is libido, sexual energy. A consequence was that sexual dimension is perceived as the most important in the human life. It's separated from spiritual dimension and truths. Then our emotions and desires are dominating, and it brought to a further debilitation of the institution of family and nativity. Journalists in mass media have this temptation, instead of research and transmitting truths about processes in our society, to promote certain ideology of relativism and permissiveness, and to be just means to arrive to the goals indicated by owners or certain ideological or financial lobbies, which prefer to remain hidden. During Soviet times, religion and faiths were presented as superstition, old-fashioned and anti-modern, which are blocking self-realization of man, and this real involvement in the transformation of material world and society. When capitalistic mentality became stronger, the mainstream mass media promoted an idea that religion is too rigid in certain moral questions. The churches are outdated with their teaching, and human rights couldn't be limited by religion, which is perceived as an obstacle to a real development and our personhood. These were reasons why we have certain spiritual vacuum in our society. But the spirit of man is hungry and is seeking to be satiated. As a consequence, we have a lot of fortune-telling salons, soothsayers, bioenergetic healers, and fashion to the practice of yoga and Eastern religions. Another problem was the big number of persons incapable to pay credits during the time of big crisis. And finally, one of our serious problems is the growing number of drugs, computer games, slot machines, and sex addicts. Where is the response? Our spirituality, heredity, and chances. Through Christianization, since the 12th century, we entered and are a part of Western and European culture. Today, from one side, our society is characterized by multicultural and multi-confessional dimension. Riga and all our territory during centuries were like a melting pot of different nations, religions, confessions, and cultures. We were living in interconfessional and ethical peace during centuries without big troubles, with small exceptions, mainly at the beginning of Reformation. This heredity is our richness, and we can share this experience with others. Our limits can be also a chance. By the Iron Curtain, we were separated from the West. From one side, it was some disadvantage, but from other, in that period we were preserved from the expansion of sexual revolution and the imposition of the false concept of human rights and freedom. In the church, we were outside from the processes which brought about the abuses in the implementation of the Second Vatican Council and false concept of human freedom in the area of human sexuality. Probably these are reasons why our believers maintained the sense of sacred, love to the Blessed Virgin Mary. They pray Holy Rosary, participate in pilgrimages to the sanctuary of Our Lady in Aglona, up to 450 kilometers by walking on foot. We have several permanent adoration chapels in Latvia. Our parishioners are going regularly to the confession and have a great respect to the Holy Mass and the Blessed Sacrament. For many years, on Good Friday, we have ecumenical way of cross, not only in Riga, but also in other places. I hope that Tallinn maybe can introduce also this tradition. What we can do now? First of all, we have to maintain our spiritual heredity, to protect and to deepen it. It's very important to promote a vision of man which is in concordance with reality. Both in the communist period and now, very materialistic and reductive vision of man is promoted. We can help to open eyes to our people that man shall not live by bread alone. St. John Paul II wrote in Centesimus Annus that the main error of Marxism was anthropological, that is, a false image of human being. Contemporary capitalistic society also has a very reduced and false vision of man. How we can correct it? We can do so only by promoting a vision of man which is in concordance with the reality, which respects all dimensions of human being, also the spiritual one. It means that we have to teach and promote theological and biblical anthropology. Crucial European values are rooted in it. Longings of the nations of Europe for the respect of human dignity, basic human rights, and freedom were inspired by a certain source. Let's try to analyze in short which are the basic values of contemporary Europe and in general for Western civilization. The first, every human being has a value. First, the most important value is the conviction that every human being has a value. We know that other civilizations see this question in a different way. For the totalitarian regimes, an individual person is usually as a grain of sand or only part of the mechanism. To them, a human being in itself has no value. Christianity embodies new life for humanity given by Jesus Christ. This means that every human being has immense value. In order to save everyone from the consequences of his sins, God emptied and humbled himself, becoming a mortal man. He accepted the punishment in our place and gave us forgiveness. The second very significant value of our civilization is the right to live in freedom. This means if a person is created in the image and likeness of God, then he also receives a freedom as God's gift. We are responsible for our choices. Without freedom, and as a consequence, without the right to choose good or evil, man cannot realize his similarity to God. And it wasn't the case that during my installation mass, I formulated my pastoral priorities. And I emphasized that my first priority during my service will be inner priority, and it means to maintain, to keep my inner freedom and my contact with God, my personal relationship with God, and all other priorities will be as a result of it. The third, truth is the equality of human beings. From the divine revelation, from the Christian roots, develops the sense of equality between man and woman. Also, today's radical feminism is trying to contrast the roles and responsibilities of women and men. In regard of the social and cultural input of both, recently Latvia has had a female president. Now the Prime Minister is a woman. We have female ministers and heads of institutions. In other words, women in Latvia are honored and respected. Fourth, fraternity. From principle of the mutual human equality results the equality of rights for men and women. Christian ideal of society and primarily of mutual relationship in family is the Holy Trinity. This is a Christian offer, social relationship model of Christianity. It is a relationship example, primarily in family, but of course also in a state and in every social group. Fifth point is respect for nature. We know that ecological issues more often are underlined in the world, and the last encyclical letter of the Pope Francis was dedicated for the ecological questions in wide sense, material and spiritual. We have to cultivate and care responsibly for the earth if we want it to become the Garden of Eden. Protection of nature is one of Christian values. We also have to promote artistic creativity. For example, this choir we have had today, beautiful choir. This creativity which is in accord with nature, not destructive one, which blasphemes or degrades humanity. For example, this history with Charlie Hebdo, for example. The seventh, in the Gospel of John, it is written that the Word became flesh. The invisible Word of God became flesh, became visible in Jesus Christ. But the word that Jesus preached and that is written down in the Gospel has also become flesh in Western culture. But in another sense, this word becomes flesh as it becomes present in our civilization, is embodied in its values and interpersonal human relationships, and transforms everything. It is good that in Latvia we have the preamble of Constitution which mentions universal human values, our Latvian life wisdom and Christian values. Natural law, by interacting with Christian values and national culture, created Latvian life wisdom. Christian, universal human and Latvian values are not in conflict with each and other. They form moral value system, which includes respect for human life, responsible life rules based on morality and justice that makes it possible to implement human creative call to happiness, value of family as steady union of men and women, mutual solidarity, love, harmony, rights of a nation to self-determination, and respect for nature. Conclusion. Over the centuries, Christian message and European culture penetrated Livonia and later Latvia, also Estonia, and in interaction with historical circumstances and local traditions, created culture with specific features. Expressions of this specificity are folk poetry, Latviju dainas, choir and folk dance traditions. The folk songs and dance festivals helped us to maintain our language and national identity during Soviet time. From Germans, we inherited responsible attitude to work and diligence. Poland helped us not to lose our Catholic roots. Through influence of Russia and later Soviet Union, we developed industry and were one of the most developed regions. It's important to understand that the condition for a real development of Europe isn't unification and relativism, but variety and unity. Maintaining our basic spiritual values, which now aren't in right manner identified and promoted in Europe. Okay, maybe. Okay. Short break and then we'll finish.